Alright, so this is the Caitibugzz and GeorgeNotFound situation. So I am going to watch Brittany Simon's reaction to the whole thing just because I think she is the only person that I've really found that was very in the middle. She heard out both sides, was unbiased, and I just kind of like some of her input. So we're gonna start. I have fast forwarded a little bit to where Caiti actually starts talking, and since it's a pretty long video, I do have it on, we're gonna put it on 1.5 speed. So let's jump on in.
For people to hear it. I'm sorry, I'm scared. Okay. I'm gonna start reading. Shit, I look a fucking mess. Okay. I want to start this by saying I wouldn't be here without Shelby. I was ready to disappear with this secret forever. I never knew that creators were allowed to talk about these kinds of things, and I guess I'm still new to it all. I just didn't feel brave enough to be here without Shelby.
I believe Shelby is in this Shovel and Wilbur Soot thing. I don't really know a whole lot about that. Also, anybody can speak out about these things. I just want to make that abundantly clear. Doesn't matter if you're a nobody. Your story is your story, and you can speak about it whenever.
I was ready to disappear with this secret forever. I never knew that creators were allowed to talk about these kinds of things, and I guess I'm still new to it all. I just didn't feel brave enough, and I still don't. But her strength made me feel like it may be okay. A little while ago, my story had almost been leaked without me knowing, so here it is on my terms. Here's my story. Last year, at the beginning of summer, I was assaulted by...
So, I believe this was 2023 that this all happened. So, it literally was last year.
...by a significantly older and popular content creator. I was freshly 18 and had just graduated high school a few weeks prior. I was drunk in a hotel room with other people around me when it happened.
Okay, I understand in the real world, people drink, right? This is why, in the United States at least, the drinking age is 21, because 18-year-olds here are just ridiculously unintelligent. And I was definitely one of those ridiculously unintelligent 18-year-olds. Actually, I'm still kind of ridiculously unintelligent, but that's neither here nor there.
Happened.
Okay, well, lots of red flags already, girl.
Yep.
Okay, so she's newly 18 out of high school, drinking in a hotel room with people who definitely don't have her best interest in mind. She's currently 19, according to Discord, which makes sense. Last year, now it's the next year, 19. Okay.
He was someone I had once watched, and he was 8 years older than me.
Oof.
And far more powerful.
So that would have put him 26. So she was 18, he was 26. Both adults. So is it the age gap is weird? Yeah, especially for 18 and 26. However, it's not illegal. So weird, yes. I don't like it. It's icky to me, but it works for some people, I guess.
Call me a prude, but those age gap relationships, they're
I'm
icky.
telling
you, when I see men in their 30s talking about oh, I date a girl who's 18.
Why? What are you talking about? What? If I had to talk to an 18-year-old today, I wouldn't know what to talk to them about. I honestly would not.
Huge red flag to me. To Brittany.
And to
you don't have to
Autumn.
share that opinion. Huge red flag to me.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm so proud of you and your bravery.
The full story is quite short. It was at a convention in a hotel room. It was my first convention I was invited to, so I stuck by one of my best friends the entire time.
Good, at least you had a buddy.
I was nervous but excited about it all and felt really grown up. One night we were at a house party when we decided to leave. It was me, my best friend, and her other friend. This other friend was romantically talking to a really big creator at the time. He was also the best friend of my soon-to-be assaulter. She wanted to go back to his hotel room, but didn't want to go alone, so we went with her. I didn't really mind, as I was up for anything. When we got to the hotel room,
You didn't mind, you were out for anything, and it sounds like you were intoxicated. Okay.
Was the creator, the girl was talking to, and his best friend. The two of them and the three of us. Not much happened that first night, just some drinking and talking at a table. The guy's friend had been passing flirts at me the entire night, but because he was the oldest in the room, we assumed he didn't know my age. Later that night, when I left,
Well, to be fair, he might not think about your age being different because you're sitting there and drinking at a con.
Exactly.
Which maybe
again, we'll go back to when I was 16, 17-ish, in that range. I had one of my very good friends was, I believe she was a sophomore in college. And one night after work, she took me to a house party. And, like, I'm walking around this house party with all these college people. So, I mean, if I had been drinking, not one of them is going to be like, oh, hey, are you 21? Like, that's usually, that's not what people are thinking when you're drinking. They're just like, oh, hey, how's it going? Like,
he puts you older than 18, right? So
yeah.
to be fair, if she didn't clarify she was 18 and she didn't make that clear, if I saw people drinking at a hotel room at a conference, I would have automatically assumed they were 21, in some capacity, right? So I don't know if she was doing that on purpose. I don't, when people are young, they try to be older than they are. I get it. So I don't know.
I 100%
I
did that
received
too.
Instagram DMs from him, and in my Instagram bio, in bold, was my age, 18.
I also want to say, just because your age is in your Instagram bio or your Twitter bio or your Tinder bio, your Bumble bio, that doesn't mean people are reading it. So it's always best to be safe. Ask people their age. Like, oh, I'm 30. How old are you? Like, it doesn't have to be like in a weird, creepy way. But, and also don't just assume people read it because it's there. You know what I mean?
Confirming he knew how old I was.
That doesn't
A few days
confirm
passed
he
when I found
knew.
myself in the same situation. Us three were at a party when it got boring, and whether the girl wanted to leave and go to his room, or he asked us to, I cannot remember. Once again, I was drunker than the night before and was willing to go anywhere. I was naive, and so we went back. I remember a friend seeing me in the lobby. They were worried by the way I was acting and asked if I was okay.
Was this before she got up to the room that they saw her and were asking if she was okay? If they're asking if you're okay, maybe you should be going to your own hotel room because you're freaking drunk.
I was really drunk, and it was an eerie feeling, like they could sense something was wrong, and I wonder what would have happened if I had picked up on it, and if I wasn't drunk, and if I didn't wave it off. But I
Picked up on what, though? I don't understand.
don't want to dwell on the what-ifs. That night, I went up to his room. Back at the hotel room again were the two friends and us three girls. At the time, all of us girls were already really drunk from the party we were coming from, stumbling and everything.
This is really difficult because they're in. So like I have to think about what bubble they're in and what would be the expectation of activity. Yeah. This is why it's so nice to have like a sober companion that like watches you, but like you're not taught that growing up. Trust me. So
yeah,
it is really difficult. Yeah. This is like a recipe for disaster already.
Nobody wants to be out of the fun, and people think they have to drink to have fun. So, but yeah, having a sober buddy, it's important.
There was more alcohol in the room, and we were encouraged to drink some more as they offered the bottles to us. They said they would join us in drinking and insisted on drinking games, and, already drunk, I obviously complied. We sat on the couch and answered questions about each other, drinking a bunch, and the older guy sat right next to me while playing. I confused my nerves for excitement, as I'd never been around such a big creature.
Wait. I confused my nerves for excitement. Confused my nerves for excitement. I don't understand. What is... To me, that would be anxious. So you're anxious that this larger content creator is sitting next to you? Or... I guess I don't understand.
Creator before. I remember getting drunker and drunker and really tired around this time. It was about 3 a.m. Right before the incident, I had answered a question about my age. We were playing a drinking game and talking about sex, and I admitted to everyone in the room that I was 18 and that I was a virgin at the time.
Okay.
I remember back now to him answering questions during the game about back when he was 19 and when he was in college, noticing how my future was his past, and I wondered how he felt sitting so close to me.
Not just because you're thinking of this of a male. I don't think people think about that when they're sitting next to somebody younger than them. And also, I don't think they're thinking like that if they're drunk. I don't know. I understand this is her story. I don't like how she kind of wrote it out as like this. It feels like a performative piece. And that sounds terrible to say. I feel really bad even thinking that or anything. I don't like how it's written.
It was a little after that when I resorted to playing games on my phone when it happened. Out of nowhere, I felt him slip his hand under my clothes, sitting next to me on the couch in front of everyone. He disguised it with a simple "Are you ticklish?"
So okay, so we're sitting on the couch. I'm here. Hi, I'm Autumn, having time. I'm drunk, and there's a man's next to me, and he's reaching over and just putting his hand up my shirt while there's people. Sorry, I'm trying to, like, I need the picture of everything. Because it doesn't, I'm not saying that she wanted to be touched. I hate being touched, whether it's just like affectionate or somebody like puts a hand on my shoulder because they're going by, or like to be hugged. The only person that can touch me is Squish because she's a baby, but I don't like to be touched. So I, for one, need the picture painted out for me, because if somebody is touching me, somebody's going to hear about it.
I coughed out a no, still staring at my phone. I was overly aware of the fact that we were in front of other people, the fact that everyone else was sitting around us, watching us, including my best friend, and that his hand
Your best friend didn't say anything or take you away? Girl, I hope they're not your best friend anymore.
was inching further to places I hadn't asked for it to be. He made a game out of my embarrassment, where he would touch me in certain areas to make me lose the phone game I was playing. I was scared, and I felt sick, either from the alcohol or from his touch. It didn't matter because my mind was a blur.
You're doing a lot of thinking beforehand if your mind is a blur, or is it a blur because he's touching you? Yes, it could be both.
I didn't speak or move. I remember being afraid to even breathe. I stayed there for a while, hoping my stillness could make me disappear. I eventually had to stand up after many minutes for it to stop. I was scared to leave or make a scene out of the embarrassment. Eventually, later in the night, I found myself alone with him and his friend. Everyone else either passed out or sick. I dread the
Your best friend left you with these people that you don't know? Girl, I really hope they are not your best friend anymore.
scenarios that could have played out that night, the what ifs. I was just so naive, and lucky or not, the night came to an end with just that. The night lasted until 6 a.m. I was still drunk, either from alcohol or tiredness. I went to leave, and the older guy decided to leave with me. We walked to the elevators.
Is he leaving with you thinking that he's gonna, like, go back to your hotel room with you? Or is he leaving because it's 6 a.m. and he's going back to his hotel room? Does she specify?
Where I didn't get on. He then pretended that the elevator was broken and that he couldn't leave, telling me to get in the elevator to prove it was broken. And then after a few minutes, he ended the night with a "guess I'm going now," leaving with a wounded puppy look. He proceeded to Instagram message me for a bit after that, simple flirting or asking about the next convention I was going to, saying stuff about seeing me there. Simple messages ultimately filtered into nothing. At the time of it all, I convinced myself I was lucky. I was lucky that it had happened to me. I was excited to be around such big creators, to be at that convention in general. I figured that's just how things were, that was the price I had to pay to be there, that anyone would have loved to be in my position, and that I should have appreciated it.
Anybody would have loved to be in my position, and I needed to appreciate it. What position exactly? You went with some friends to this creator's hotel room, like that they weren't there drinking with them, or that they weren't touched by them. I I don't like the wording of some of this.
It was a first. That night, it was the first time anyone had ever touched me. I assured myself that I was just being sensitive about it all, that it wasn't a big deal. But assuring only can go so far. I felt dirty in a way that I couldn't wash off.
Did I miss something? Yeah, Brittany, I kind of got this face. Okay, so I get that was the first time that anybody had touched her. Because in my situation, I was 19, and okay, yeah, I had kissed boys prior, but that was the extent of it. Um, I wasn't in I wasn't in this kind of situation where I was drunk and it wasn't around strangers. This person kind of was a stranger to me. Uh, so when she's saying that she felt dirty in a way she couldn't wash off, for me, that's how I felt after the whole ordeal. And I want to say for a week, well, even that night, um, so long story short, I had met this person, um, and they were new to town, and we had talked online for a little bit, and okay, a little bit as in like a few days. So he had asked if I would show him around town. So I was like, yeah, sure. So I went and picked him up, and we were driving around town for a few hours. We were having really good conversation, like laughing and all this. And then it was like 12:30 in the morning, and I really had to go to the bathroom. And so I I was like, "Do you mind if I go home real quick? I really need to go to the bathroom." And he's, "Yeah, yeah, that's fine, no problem." So he came up to my apartment with me, and I went to the bathroom, and he was watching TV because I had just left um the TV on, and that's when it happened. And I don't remember most of it because I did very much disassociated. I do know that I didn't say no, but I said nothing. I That whole frozen like a statue was very much the situation. And I still had to take this person home after the fact. So it happened, and I took him back home, and I went home, and for as long as my hot water lasted, I sat in the shower just trying to get it off. So I get what she's saying, but just from what she's told in this story, I don't. What are we washing off exactly? He tickled you? Or put his hands on you and disguised it as a tickle? I guess. I know I'm vague on details, but it wasn't just touching. And if something happened to her that's more than just touching, I understand completely. But from what she's giving out right now, it's not, the energy isn't matching to, she's told us he tickled her, and now we're at the, I felt dirty in a way that I couldn't wash off. So I don't understand. What happened? Like, I don't need to know details, but if you're putting these allegations out online, the internet's is going to want the details, I'm sure.
I couldn't help the way that my body reacted and flinched. Part of me still wanted to feel cool about it all, to convince myself I was lucky so I didn't have to think about it. I would reimagine the scenario in my head, replaying it again and again, what I could have done, what I could have said instead.
Yeah, I think that's all survivors. It's the woulda, coulda, shoulda game, and 9 times out of 10 you lose. Well, 10 times out of 10 you lose.
But it didn't matter. None of it did, because he never asked, and that fact would never change, no matter how.
Okay, I'm not.
I think I'm gonna guess Brittany's gonna say something about the not asking, because from what Caiti has described, this is just when people get drunk. Sometimes people get handsy when they're drunk. So maybe I missed something. Maybe I'm not paying attention. Who knows?
Just to clarify, well, I haven't talked because I just wanted her to tell her story. We're not even close to her finishing her story, but this is the main story?
Yeah.
I mean, we'll watch the rest of her talk. I don't want to, you know what I mean? But, okay, interesting. So far, they were drinking, playing shot games, which is pretty common. And she was playing on her phone, and he touched her, disguising it as a tickle game, or just tickled her, depending on how you want to view the story.
Right.
So basically, he tickled her and fondled her, and they were drunk. And that's it, right? I just want to clarify that that's what it is so far.
How hard I thought about it. I changed after that. I believed life wasn't fair. I was naive, and maybe sometimes to a fault, but I could only wish it lasted longer. I miss not knowing. I used to be kind. I'm angry a lot of the time now at that person, at myself.
This, again, very common. I would think people get angry and they change as people when stuff like this happens to them. Again, it's the way she's presenting it to us is that there was something more than, or something had happened that he tickled her and fondled her. Like, how many people have been tickled and then I mean, I don't like being tickled, so I get like angry in the moment, but it doesn't change me as a whole entire person.
At the fact that a year later, I can feel my heartbeat stop at the sight of him, and he probably couldn't even make out my face in a crowd. I can't stop thinking about who I was before it all, who I'll never be again, and how some things you can't undo no matter how hard you try. I never said anything out of pure embarrassment. I was embarrassed it happened, and I was afraid to look weak or to show that it hurt me.
See, I never said anything because I thought it was just, oh, I said or did something that gave him the impression that this is what I wanted. And I didn't say no, don't do this. But I wouldn't say that it embarrassed me or I was afraid to be weak. I also didn't want to have to, because with these kind of accusations, when you do the accusing, you then have the burden of proof. You have to supply that burden of truth. I can't just come out and say, Jim Bob from down the street, He did this horrific thing to me, and he did it. Well, Jim Bob could come out and say, I've never seen this woman in my entire life. So now it's all back on me to prove that, no, he did this. You know what I'm saying? So it's not just that I wasn't wanting to just say, this is what happened, and move on with it, because that's not how it was going to work. Even now, I don't talk about it because one, it's been 11 years, and two, I don't need to sit and relive the truth.
But I realize now that I don't think being hurt makes you weak. I think it's strong to feel things that have hurt you, and then to still choose to feel nonetheless. I was scared to speak out because I thought it was my fault, and that I didn't deserve to. I was scared of
Yep, there's that part of it too.
him and all of those who surrounded him. I was scared of his power. I was scared I was mistaken.
What kind of power does he have? I've never heard of this guy, for one, not until any of this happened. So I don't know what kind of power he holds.
So you guys, chat seems confused. Like, what what I'm a little confused. Britt, are you gonna watch the guy's response after? Yeah, so we're gonna watch the guy's response after. I think I'm a little confused about what happened, because basically she's saying they were doing shot game and he was getting physical with her, but like in a kidding way. She's saying it's inappropriate, she didn't want it.
Right.
But also, okay. Let's see. Rain says, I'm feeling bad that because sexual inappropriateness is so common in my old bubbles, I'm not feeling the gravity of her story. Yeah, we're gonna watch the whole responses. I'm not. So the dilemma I'm having already. So I'm gonna try to add nuance to this. Obviously, she's impacted. The dilemma is that she just described party culture, drinking culture, and most of my 20s.
Yeah, that's another thing. This stuff kind of happens in these situations. Well, okay, in my age group, she's obviously much younger than I am, so it's different. The generations are different. So what was normal in, like, my friend groups and my bubbles is not the same as, like, my mom, for instance. So it's probably not the same for people now, but this whole situation is 100% just was the norm for my group, my bubble of people.
Because that was mostly how flirting happened.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, you kind of get a little handsy and touchy, and I mean, you shoot your shot. Like, oh, I'm going to touch you here. Like, obviously nothing inappropriate, but like, and see, you're testing those boundaries.
Out, like, how is the culture changed in which this wasn't happening like this? So I'm trying to figure out, like, what was the vibe? Because obviously, when I was younger, this is what drinking, like, she just described like a normal drinking night, but also, I'm having a struggle here, I think. I'm having a tiny bit of a struggle understanding it from the bubble's perspective. Like, what was the expectation of the behavior? How do they flirt in this bubble? How do you communicate consent in this bubble? I mean, she's already 18 and drinking underage, which means she's already breaking the law, and she's already putting herself in that position. But then she's with strangers, and that's a bad recipe. Don't do that. But also, like, you don't think you're the person who's going to get targeted when you're...
Yeah, I never thought about that. I was just like, oh yeah, I have to pee. I'm going to my house to pee. I mean, I didn't think going out that night with a stranger, essentially, was going to end the way that it did. So now, obviously, I'm much more cautious, and I'm sure Caiti is also now much more cautious, but I think we're being cautious for different reasons.
You're young, you think like, oh, I'm going to have a good time, and most people do have a pretty good time. And so the fondling could be a part of that good time or not a part of that good time. And that's the dilemma. And so I think it depends on the cultural expectation. So I think consent is cultural. Mm-hmm. I don't think consent is objective. And so that's what I'm confused about. But okay, we'll keep listening, because obviously this is why I do recommend sober companions to go with you, so they can kind of help you, because when you go into a drinking situation, you don't know what the expectation is. So there's a lot of layers here.
Especially with people you don't know.
That could go wrong. So obviously she wasn't equipped to handle it, and that is going to lead to trauma if something happens, which means that I'm not surprised she's taking it so hard.
Right, right.
I'm not sure what he did explicitly, and I think that's what I'm confused about. I hate to say it, but I kind of want a little bit more detail, if that's...
Yes, exactly. I don't need to know, but the response doesn't feel like it fits the crime, if that can be a phrase I can use here.
Sounds okay. Like, I'm not sure if he touched her shoulder or touched her boob or touched her crotch. I'm not sure if he touched her back in a way that felt sexual. I'm not sure. He didn't kiss her, it sounds like. It sounds like he didn't pursue her. It sounds like they didn't have sex. They were naked together.
Right.
So I'm just trying to figure
Yeah, because there's other people in the room.
out, like, where's the line? But obviously she has the right to feel violated, and
Right.
he has the right.
If she's getting touched if anybody touches me over the shirt, I feel violated, but that's because I do not like being touched. However, I set that boundary with people. Most people know I don't like to be touched. So if I'm being touched under the shirt, that is a 100% violation. So, I mean, her feelings are genuine, I can tell. She very much is hurt by this situation, and she has that right to feel hurt. But I don't know, okay, this is going to sound really shitty, but I don't know what she is feeling hurt about. And I don't want to be that person, but I'm confused. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm sorry to be an asshole. I really am. Just confused.
To feel like that was like what I was used to doing. But also, he himself being older shouldn't be drinking with 18-year-olds, even though I know, and I think a lot of older millennials know, that was also pretty normal for us to be 18, 19, 20 and drinking with people that were way older than us.
Shit, there were people I'm sure I drank with 25, 26-year-olds at like 16, 17. Not appropriate at all. And I mean, I'm sure then I was touched. That was probably assault as well, but again, it was the bubble. It didn't register to me.
So also you have to pay attention to the bubble. So okay, so we have
Yeah, see, Brittany and her bubbles.
to think about that, okay? We have to think about all those things. You know what I mean? Discord says, how gross of a dude to do that after she said she was 18-year-old virgin. I don't think we can excuse him. He's not a rapist, but he's a creep.
There's a difference, though.
Discord says, I can't tell if she's not saying it because of not wanting to get triggered. Like, she's not going into detail. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I could
That's, I think, for me, why I don't remember the details, because I think it would trigger something terrible in me. Since anytime it gets brought up, I very much disassociate from the conversation. I have no problem saying this is what happened to me, but do not ask me for details because it is in a lockbox. There is bedrock around it. You cannot break it.
Now, I want to rewind it. So hold on. We're at 14:37 right now. I just want to rewind it just to see if, she says it in a different way. You know what I mean? So let's see.
Thank you for rewinding this because I thought maybe I was missing something.
It was a first. That night, it was the first time anyone had ever touched
Sorry, I
me.
have to rewind it more.
And the older guy decided to leave with me. We walked.
Wait, I'm so confused. Hold on.
After that, when I resorted to playing games on my phone when it happened.
Okay, so she was playing games on her phone.
Out of nowhere, I felt him slip his hand under my clothes.
Okay, out of nowhere, I felt him slip his hand under my clothes, which I'm not sure what that means.
Sitting next to me on the couch.
Like under her shirt, in her pants.
In front of everyone.
In front of everyone. Okay.
He disguised it with a simple, "Are you ticklish?"
Okay, he disguised it as, "Are you ticklish?" So imagining he slipped it under and was like, hee 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 hee. Okay.
It's the he for me, Brittany.
I coughed out a no, still staring at my
Okay, so she said, no, I'm not ticklish.
phone. I was overly aware of the fact that we were in front of other people. The fact that everyone else was sitting around us, watching us, including my best friend.
Okay, so even her best friend let it happen, which either means no one was reading it as an assault or consent violation, or they were all too drunk to know better, which means he's as much of a possible victim as she is. That's the question.
Yeah.
If everyone is drunk, who's the victim? Are you mutually victimizing each other? So again, this is the problem with social cues, expectation of behavior, what is allowed, what is appropriate. And again, you can be traumatized by things that everyone agrees is appropriate. Remember that. So I'm not taking away her trauma. If she feels traumatized, that's valid. I'm not going to argue her suffering, right? No one here is arguing her suffering. If she feels this way, she feels this way. Okay?
And that his hand was inching further to places I hadn't asked for it to be.
Okay, his hand had inched closer to places I hadn't asked for it to be. I'm assuming between the legs or breasts.
He made a game out of my embarrassment where he would touch me in certain areas to make me lose the phone game I was playing.
Okay, so he would touch me in certain areas to make me lose the phone game. So of course, I can switch this in my head, and I can imagine something completely innocent, right? I think we can all do that. Maiden says, I think the onus is more on the 27-year-old to know better than it is on the 18-year-old. I agree with that the 27-year-old should know better. I do agree with that, obviously, but I'm not a big fan of age gap things, though I do believe in the ability of an 18-year-old to consent to sex and casual relationships with people that are older.
But if he's drunk and he's not 100% certain how old she is, to him, he doesn't, why would he have to know better if he doesn't know how old she is? She can say, oh, I had just said my age this long ago. Well, was he sitting there with you when you said it? Had he gotten up to go to the bathroom? Was he even listening? Was he talking to somebody else? Is he drunk to the point that it just went in one ear and out the other? There are so many factors, since he's intoxicated, and everybody is, that we can't just say, oh, well, he's the adult, he should know better. Well, she is too. And I think she's putting a lot of assumptions on him when we don't know how his state of mind was at this time.
But I also know, like, everyone can be taken advantage of. So, okay, obviously, I think we agree with that. The older person should know better, right? We agree to that.
I was scared and I felt sick, either from the alcohol or from his touch. It didn't matter because my mind was a blur.
Okay.
I didn't speak or move. I remember being afraid to even breathe. I stayed there for a while, hoping my stillness could make me disappear.
Okay.
I eventually had to stand up after.
Okay, so she did eventually get to leave. So that was the extent of the altercation. Let's go back to 14 minutes because that's where we were at.
Okay.
That it hurt me, but I realize now that I don't think being hurt makes you weak. I think it's strong to feel things that have hurt you, and then to still choose to feel nonetheless. I was scared to speak out because I thought it was my fault, and that I didn't deserve to. I was scared.
We really need to cut that stigma out of the world that, oh, if you speak out, nobody's going to believe you. I mean, I know I'm sitting here picking apart her story, and it sounds like I don't believe her. I believe something happened to her. But again, I'm not sure what happened, because from what she's told us, it tickled her. So, I mean, I don't want people to be afraid to not come out with their... it's also probably a lot easier to come out with your story and not do it on a Twitch stream. Like...
of him and all of those who surrounded him. I was scared of his power. I was scared I was mistaken.
What kind of power does he have?
Remembering wrong. I hoped I was remembering wrong. I was scared to go to any more conventions on the chance that I'd see him again. I never thought I'd be strong enough to talk about it, or for what may follow. I'm haunted by him everywhere, in usernames, profile pictures, in my own past. I lost the passion I once had for content, for anything really. The association never went away.
I really hope she went to therapy or isn't currently in therapy to help kind of get through all this.
Okay.
All the years I spent creating this community felt like a waste because of one night. I didn't even want to log on to this app. All over something that I never asked for. I can't help but feel angrier all the time, seeing the love I had once had for creation before it happened. I tried to forget it all and ignore it until it resurfaced.
You know, okay, so Netstar says we can say they should know better, but we also have to agree that she and her friend should know better to get drunk and head to someone else's hotel room, right? We can say they both knew. I think this is where the gray comes in, like the nuance has to come in. So
that's very true. Because if they're, I would assume to go to a VidCon, you have to be a certain age, maybe, without like parental supervision. I don't know. I'm not big enough. I don't go to these things. But at what point do we as individuals know, hey, I'm getting intoxicated, I shouldn't go be with strangers? Is this not, I mean, I was taught stranger danger from a very young age, it being sober. I mean, are we just not having conversations with young people nowadays to look out for themselves, or what's happening? Is it a societal thing?
Again, if we're going to hold 18-year-olds responsible for getting drunk and driving, are we holding 18-year-olds responsible for getting drunk and going to hotel rooms? Now, the only thing that I think is very different is that we would hold the 18-year-olds accountable for getting drunk and hurting someone or getting caught. We would hold anyone accountable for assaulting somebody else when drunk, whether someone put themselves in a position or not. Because the dilemma is like, she can get drunk at 18 in a room and not hurt anyone but herself.
Right.
But if somebody while she's drunk attacks her, they're still guilty whether they're drunk or sober. You can't be out here attacking people. But also, I can understand a scenario in which there's like an assumed allowance. Everyone's of age. Everyone is allowed to sexually engage if they want. It's adding in the alcohol. But then even if they were all sober.
It's also knowing your own boundaries and taking the opportunity to say, fuck this person's feelings, I don't want this, get off of me. And that's a conversation that I know that we really should be having with people. Who cares if you're going to hurt somebody's feelings? If somebody is doing something to you that you are not comfortable with, fuck their feelings.
You could argue the age difference is the issue. You could argue his fame is an issue. And that's the dilemma. What's actually the truth? And that's what's really, 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 really difficult to figure out is like, what is actually happening? Is he a malicious, intentional abuser? Or is he an adolescent?
Like, has he done this before? Or what? Like, again, we don't know more of the situation.
You know, content creator who's in an adolescent situation having a little stupid moment, which, by the way, I hate to say it, is mostly common in the world, which is why
people are stupid.
I would say, and have stricter rules on how people can engage with other people because the world is genuinely very messy, right?
And stupid.
Okay, let's go.
Resurfaced as a fresh cut. I remember a moment around October where I made a comment about a certain group abusing power over minors in their DMs, saying they had minors in their DMs.
Oh, minors in the DMs, not good.
It was an absent-minded comment, and I apologized for it, of course. It was a possible subconscious jab out of my own...
Okay, hold on, I gotta rewind that because I think I lost the context.
Resurfaced as a fresh cut. I remember a moment around October where I made a comment about a certain group abusing power over minors in their DMs.
Was your assaulter part of that group?
Saying they had minors in their DMs. It was an absent-minded comment, and I apologized for it, of course. It was a possible subconscious jab out of my own personal resentment.
Okay.
My comments filled with people saying that I didn't care about grooming victims, and that I thought assault was a joke. And I remember sitting there, reading the comments, scrolling over and over again, heart beating faster. Over half of the comments had him as their profile picture.
I think I'm a little lost here. She made a
Yeah, I don't know what's happening either.
joke in reference. She's being very vague on purpose, I think probably for legal reasons. Okay. If before they end up online, right?
And I wondered if I could ever find peace. The idea of will I ever heal, it's scary. But I was tired of withholding my story to protect myself. I'd spent so long convincing myself it was my fault, or that I was just a coward. I just wanted to disappear.
Again, I hope she's found therapy.
But I didn't, because I realized that this is a problem bigger than me. It may sound dramatic, but it's how I felt for over a year. I feel everything very strongly, and I don't want that to change. It was a big deal to me, and I spent too much time downplaying my own experiences, and I still do. I'm still trying to realize that it's okay. My story is about power, and age, and consent. It pisses me off.
I'm still not sure where the power comes in.
That they can hide behind their power while victims are left helpless.
What power?
No matter what scenario.
Is she making a claim that they're purposely targeting young girls? Because that would be interesting. Like, that would be something to pay attention to. Definitely if this group of guys or whoever it is specifically targeting younger girls to take advantage of them, that would be something, right?
Right.
But they would have to be doing that. You know what I mean?
It pisses me off that he thought he had the right to do what he did. That he did it even in my silence.
So again, the scenario she laid out could be completely innocent. It really can. Or he's explicitly targeting women of young ages, getting them drunk or encouraging them to drink, and then moving forward with doing stuff. But now again, the way she described the situation is that he basically tickled her in an inappropriate manner, touching places that were inappropriate. She didn't go into much detail. So again, could be something that within reason, two adults.
Yeah, this could be something very sinister in a court, or it could be something very not. Again, like Brittany says, she's being very vague. And I hate, well, excuse me. It's thundering. Now I lost my train of thought.
Could consent to, or if he's targeting women, getting them drunk and picking them young so they don't fight back. I think that.
That. Or if it was just completely innocent, miscommunication, what have you, or if he, is this way with multiple young female people. Well, young females, I guess.
Definitely plays a role. So, we're trying to figure out which scenario was it, right?
Right.
And also, huge red flag for guys dating 18-year-olds, period.
Yeah.
If you're girl, she just graduated high school, leave these 18-year-olds alone, bros. Leave them alone, okay?
My biggest fears about speaking out was you guys. I wanted to keep my...
Your biggest fear was your audience. Why? I'm sorry. I appreciate that people watch me, but if I said to speak out about something like this, y'all are the last people I'm thinking about. I'm sorry.
My community safe from what may follow, and also, most importantly, from the ugly truth of life. I promise
You cannot save people from life. Unfortunately, life's gonna punch everybody.
with you guys to be open and honest all the time. I know, but I didn't want to break up what we had. I wanted to stay strong for you guys. I didn't want this to define me or my community or all we've worked for. I didn't.
Oh, Stephanie says we don't even know if this guy knew she was coming over. She said she doesn't remember if they were invited or if her friend wanted to go. He could have already been drunk when they came over. If he's drunk before
Oh, I never thought about that.
they got there, that's what I'm saying. Like, is the drunkenness can't matter, like, to some extent, but also the behavior that he did could be considered very typical in dating. Again,
Or it could just be him as a drunk person. Maybe he's really handsy, flirty when he's drunk.
Speaking as a millennial.
I didn't want it to all be overshadowed by one event. But once again.
Oh, and I do wonder if she's extra scared because she knows something about behind the scenes activity or some sort of issue with other
True.
people.
That's a good
because
point,
otherwise,
too.
if this was just a one-off incident, she could just talk to him after and be like, hey, I didn't like the way you treated me, and moving forward, like, I don't want you to touch me like that. And then if he broke his
or if they were messaging, why not just be like, hey, wasn't cool with this. That's actually, I mean, I know not everybody is like that, but so we'll go back to my situation. I had to take this person home after everything happened. The next day he texts me, and I told him that I didn't ask for this to happen. I didn't want to do any of that. You never asked, you just kind of did. And he's, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't think it would be that big of a deal. And I was like, but it was. And so he kept apologizing, and I would have been able to accept the just apologizing. It was when let me come over so I can tell you that I'm sorry. Let's hang out and talk about this. And then it was him just showing up at my apartment or hanging out in the parking lot of my apartment building. And that's when it was too much. So he had the opportunity to just, oh, I'm really sorry about that, and then leave it at that, but he kept pushing it. So, I mean, she could have easily, if they were messaging, just been like, hey, you kind of touched me, and I really didn't like it. And it could have easily just been, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for that to happen.
Her consent after that would be a huge pattern of behavior. But initially, he could do this behavior without it technically being a violation in a malicious way. But we would have to know if this, like, maybe she knows about a pattern of abuse we don't. Maybe that's the problem. I don't know.
Very true.
This isn't about me. This isn't about drama.
Okay.
This is about everyone who's watching that is like me. This isn't about canceling. This is about real people's lives. I live this every night and every morning. With every touch, I relive that room.
I will say that's kind of accurate too. I've noticed it. It still happens to me now. I started physical therapy in April, I think. No, May. Either or. I don't remember. And I flinched when the physical therapist touched me. So, I mean, this stuff doesn't just go away. So, I mean, it makes me wonder if, like, something more happened and she doesn't, like Brittany said, there's legal reasons she's being so vague,
See, something feels a little off here. Because either, and I want to say this again, I don't know this consciousness, but she needed to be more explicit with the story, because the way she told the story makes me think the only way to be traumatized from this incident is if you are so incredibly sheltered, you were never touched by a man at all, not by a...
That's also a very good point. I mean, if you've never been touched before, then all of a sudden, like, I don't want to know how she was touched, but if all she's giving us is he put his hand under her shirt and asked, "Are you ticklish?" I don't know.
By a brother, not by a friend, not by schoolmates, not by other women. Like, again, like, I mean that in the most, like, very bubbled way, because I don't know what my bubble was different, but, like, as teenagers, you were experimenting, your friends tickled you, you had moments with them. So I'm trying to figure out, like, is she saying, I wish I knew not to be rude, but I kind of wish I knew the details to understand why it was so traumatizing.
It's so hard to ask to want details when this is all she's giving us without it sounding rude, you know?
Because not that it's not valid that it is, but it feels like something is, I don't know, something is like, oh, like she's very shocked.
It sounds like she read somebody's story, took out what she want, like how she should be reacting, and put in what happened, and then sprinkled in everything else around it. Like, again, it sounds like a very performative written piece versus this is my story.
And they didn't even kiss, they didn't have sex, nobody got naked. So I'm just like, I'm trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, what is the thing? Like, my brain isn't latching onto it quite, but I'm not sure. You know what I mean? Alex says there's something not entirely truth-telling about the way she's controlling her tone while reading her statement. No, she seems very, she's really crying. I think she's reading the...
Yes, the emotions and everything are genuine. I just don't feel... Okay. This is where I'm going to probably get in hot water. The emotions feel genuine, the story does not.
Note very well. I think she's got a lot of passion. I wouldn't be surprised if she kind of practiced. I'm not doubting her experience with the situation. So I just want to make sure that's clear. I, Brittany, am not doubting that she is having a real experience with this situation. The question is why and what details are we missing to understand why it must have been so impactful, right? Because that's what I'm trying to figure out. Okay, so again, let's just like figure it out. I don't want in any way, I don't want it to make it sound like I'm doubting her experience. Her suffering is valid. The question is, why did it happen?
About connections.
Okay.
One of my best friends, Rue, and I have bonded over similar experiences. And I'm sure there's many others like us.
Okay.
I'm lucky enough to be surrounded by friends who support me. Without them, I wouldn't be half as strong, and I wouldn't be here saying all this. You don't have to believe me or my story.
I mean, I believe you. The story is very believable. So the story is believable. I don't think anyone here needs to doubt her story. It definitely probably happened. The question is, what does it mean that it happened? That's the...
Yeah, what are you leaving out of the story is what I'm questioning. I mean, yeah, the situation itself is totally plausible. I can see it happening. But it's missing detail that is kind of important.
The question.
Because I know the truth, and so does he. He knows, and I have creators and friends that also know, and some who were there. This is about realizations. I was once a viewer, and now I'm a creator. I spent so long looking up to creators that I didn't know.
Don't. They're just people, and they're all fucked up.
Exactly. They're just people. Same with actors, actresses. All these people that everybody looks up to, they're people. They're going to make just as many mistakes as some peon down the street. Like, they are just people. We need to, like, I think in our mind, we're giving these people the power. We're putting it on them and inflating them when they don't deserve it or need it. They are just people. And I can't wait for the day that we can start looking at content creators as people and stop putting them on these pedestals and all this other stuff, but I digress.
Who I had never met, aspiring to be a part of a behind the scenes that I didn't understand yet. Sometimes I wish back to when I was unknowingly looking from the outside. I now have a ruined perception, or rather a truthful one. In this community, a lot of us are told to remain silent and to bite our tongues, and
What community?
those who speak out against it are often isolated.
True.
Oh, like on YouTube, like content creation, like YouTube, Twitch, don't talk about it, or like who cares? People are going to believe you or they're not going to believe you, and how you respond to that is going to define who you are. If you say your piece and let people spew their hateful garbage and just not care because you know the truth, that's going to make you such a genuine person. And who cares about what these people are saying? Like you said, you weren't doing this for drama or to cancel anybody. You're doing it for you, I'd assume. So who the fuck cares what everybody else thinks?
And that's wrong. It's all wrong. But most importantly, this is about my story and the stories of all the other people who have been silenced, whether it's by their own fear, by power, by this idea that it's not significant enough, because if it's affected you, it's significant enough. This is also about all the asexual people out there who are surrounded by a world where you're wanted for your body. I grew tired of not being able to speak out about my own story, and if it wasn't for Shelby, I never realized my
If it wasn't for Shelby, I never would have realized
silence was bringing me everything except peace.
my silence is bringing me everything except peace. Now, here's a really tough question. When do we talk about people's patterns of behavior? Because I got stories about every YouTuber you love right now who's got a horrible toxic pattern of behavior, but most of them are out with it. Most people know, they just don't think about it. Like, I guarantee you, like I say all the time, don't date these men, don't hang out with these women, don't involve yourself. And the world goes, you're such a prude, Brittany. I want to be liked by them. Okay, go. But then at that point, I don't know if you're a victim. Andrew Tate is arrested right now by Romanian authorities being researched for sex trafficking. If a woman knows this and picks Andrew Tate even today, at what point are you not explicit in the, like, is that not consent? But then some people are like, don't say that, Brittany.
Yeah, I guess so I need to try to figure this out in my own brain. So what she's saying is, if we're aware that this is a pattern for people, but we're putting ourselves in a situation with that person, at what point can we not consider them a victim, or ourselves, or however I phrase that? Okay, I got it.
Brittany, like, she's still a victim. If, again, not the women who are tricked, women who know and just don't believe he's a sex trafficker. If they go to be with Andrew Tate, like, they can still be victims of his manipulation, but they're also victims of their own goddamn stupid brains.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So part of me is like, at what point are we held accountable for putting ourselves in bad situations? And at what point can we still hold other people accountable for taking advantage of us? Right? Like, this is very important. Now, she needs a really good therapist because she's obviously been impacted, and I think that's really valuable.
Thank you. I've only been saying that for the last, like, half hour.
And I understand her wanting to tell her story. You know what I mean? I do, and I believe in that.
But you should be telling your story to not the internet, I want to say. I know I just did for the most part. However, it has been 11 years, and it took me 9 years to even say it out loud to anybody. So
I experienced firsthand what the power of speaking out can do to a person. I hope this can be of some help to those of you who are like me too, because we aren't defined by what has happened to us.
True.
I want to remind you all that it's also okay if you don't speak out, because you don't owe anybody anything.
that's a very good point. And you also don't. So obviously we know that George responds. And one, he doesn't owe her a response. He could easily have just said, okay, that's not how it happened. Go ahead and I'm sorry, that's how you felt it happened. That's what happened. I'm sorry. And she could have chose not to respond to his response. You know what I'm saying? She doesn't owe his response a response.
It's your story. It's your story to tell, and it's yours to heal from. And it's only yours. Sometimes the most healing treatment...
This is also why you don't need to bring it to the internet. Also, it's your story to heal from. You put it on the internet, and you've kind of opened it up to, well, the internet.
in the world is simply realizing that you're not alone in your own experiences.
Okay. We made it through Caiti's statement. I'm gonna have to do a part 2 for George's statement because this was a lot for me. So she was at a VidCon, went to this other creator's hotel room, then was drinking with friends and these other creators, and was felt up, touched under the shirt, and that's the extent that we know. Again, it's a plausible story. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I guess I just don't see I feel like something else happened and she kept it out, which is completely her call. She doesn't have to tell people anything. But, so we'll leave this one here for now. If you liked the video, give it a like and subscribe, comment, I guess. As always, tell your mom I says hi, and peace out, Girl Scouts.